Good afternoon. This is Monday, August 23rd. My name is Deborah Pratt Johnson Burns, and I am the founder of Literacy to Legacy Mentors, Reframing Your Financial Future. Wanted to introduce you today to my esteemed guest, Jodi Okun. Jodi is the founder of College Financial Aid Advisors, and she is also the author of Secrets of a Financial Aid Pro. So today you may be seeing that book, in fact, on our recording today, and we may even give it away to some of our audience participants. So stay tuned. Jodi is also recognized by About.com as one of, and Huffington Post for that matter, as one of the leading college financial aid coaches in the country. So please do listen up. She also on Thursday evenings at 5 has a college cash conversation, 5 p.m. Pacific time, that is. And please do tune in and listen carefully to all of these goodies that she has to share, because she's on the inside track here and she knows things that really none of us may know, and some of us may think we know. So I think it's terrific to just really let it all hang out here, and let's hear it from Jodi from the hip. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for joining me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. Hello to everyone. I'm so happy, such a wonderful. So thanks for inviting me. And hopefully we can give away a lot of tips, a few books, answer questions, and just sort of have an open dialogue. Absolutely. For all those questions. I love when we're able to tell the things that people aren't hearing or reading in the news. So what do you got for me today?
And we will. So I want to share with our audience that she's back today by popular demand. She came to be our guest on the 11th of August, and we talked a lot about some of the fundamentals of securing a major financial aid package for your student. And today we're going to give a little bit of highlight, and then we're going to talk specifically about some things that high school seniors should be doing now. So let's talk a little bit about that wonderful thing called the FAFSA. You know, most people are sort of like, oh my God, it's so daunting. And do I have to fill it out? And we make too much money, or do we make enough money? Or it's very, very confusing. And we need someone like you to take us through it, because it's just, you make one wrong mistake and it's over. So talk a little bit about that FAFSA, and what does it mean? What does it stand for? Why should we do it? And when?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's daunting. If we just take a snapshot of what I did this past week, which was maybe, I don't know, 50 phone calls every 15 minutes of senior parents going, seniors in high school going, what do I do? And so we start with the free application for federal student aid. And sometimes I'm going to say it out the wrong way, because we have an acronym in financial aid for everything, and I want everyone to know. You find it, the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA, FAFSA, FAFSA at fafsa.ed.gov. It goes live October 1st, and this is the time that parents are starting to go, my kid's applying to college, my student, my child, and now I have to apply for financial aid. How can I afford it? I thought I could afford it. Maybe I can't afford it. And so the number one thing that we should be talking about is, no matter what, period, no matter what, during what is going on right now with COVID, and is school in, is school out, what's going to happen, everyone should fill it out no matter what their income is. Okay, the student needs an FSA ID, that is their social security number, their birthday, their email, their first and last name, and one parent from the family needs their own FSA ID with their own social, their own birthday, and their own email. That's important. I know as parents, sometimes we use their email, or sometimes we overprotect it. We are now cutting one apron string and knowing that you have to do it this way. And you have to fill it out. It's probably takes 30 minutes. You only need about 10 things to do it. So the first thing you need are driver's license, social security numbers, birthday, tax returns from the previous year, W-2s, and you're good to go. If you take everything, put it on your desk in a folder or on your desk, open it up, you should be able to complete it in 30 minutes. It is the gateway application to scholarships, federal loans, and federal money that the government could pass down to a student if eligible.
Excellent. That is very thorough, as always, and I appreciate that, and so does our audience. If you would, could you take us through exactly what you just said, which is also a bit of a refresher from last week, and that is, tell us about the sort of categories. So, you know, as a parent with a child going into college, we have so many emotions around this, in addition to financial worries and concerns on some level, right? I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't have any financial worries and concerns. I don't care how much money they have. Maybe the more they have, the more worries they have. No,
for sure.
But what I'm saying is that it's important to know, so, okay, what are they actually doing with the FAFSA? What are they going to get? If you could list those categories, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, you're talking about like scholarships and grants and
like
so on and so forth. Okay,
subsidized, unsubsidized, that kind of thing.
Perfect. The FAFSA helps a student. It's a student application. It's not a parent application. It is a student application. Helps the student, if the student is eligible, based on their parents' income till the age of 24, possibly receive a grant, a Pell Grant, if they make under a certain amount of money, or they can receive a state grant if they make within a category of money. And they also are eligible for work study. It is the only time that a family can apply for work study on the free application for federal student aid. And here's your first tip for today, or maybe your millionth, I lost track. When completing the free application for federal student aid, there is a question that says, are you interested in work study? Don't tell anybody we're giving answers here, but we are. You select yes. Do not select I don't know, and do not select no. You would like your student would like to be considered for free federal work study money. And that is to get a job on campus. Maybe they work 1 hour, maybe they work 2 hours, they get minimum wage and they get a paycheck. That's your tip. And also you're eligible for a student loan package. A freshman student gets $5,500, a sophomore $6,500, junior and senior $7,500. It is mandated amount by the government. You cannot get more. Of that $5,500, $3,500 is a subsidized loan paid by the government, the interest rate, while they attend college. And 6 months after they graduate, they get to pay it back. The unsubsidized loan accrues interest while the student goes to college. You can pay the interest, and they also do not need to pay that back till 6 months after they graduate. And I'm really going to talk quick about this piece. The interest rate for each loan is announced May 30th before they start college in the fall. Oh. Okay, so every year there's a set interest rate. It's set for the whole year. And then the next year, the same thing happens.
Excellent. That's very thorough. Again, thank you so very much for giving us all that detail. I think that's super important. Yes. Also, with respect to grants, you had mentioned the Pell, which is, I believe, state directed. I understand too that there are college grants that are provided. They may be characterized as a loan, but not really sure what that means. But if you could share with us all about that, that would be very, very helpful.
Of course, of course. So the Pell Grant's actually federal. Okay, so the Pell Grant is federal and it's a set amount. It's determined by the government. And then I like to use my state as an example because it's easy to use my state. In California, we have something called a Cal Grant. So a Cal Grant can be eligible for students who have a certain GPA and the parents make in a certain income, and it's bracketed by family size. So if you fill out the FAFSA, you're eligible for a Pell Grant, you can also get a Cal Grant if you go to college in California. So that's a great thing. There's also institutional grants. So some colleges, like private, smaller colleges, might give a student like an LMU, a Pepperdine,
Right.
USD, Chapman, they might give institutional grants that comes from their pockets.
Right. Right.
Okay. And I think you said one other thing and I lost it.
That's
So,
okay. So yeah, that's brilliant. That's exactly what I meant. I just wanted
yeah.
that kind of, and the listeners and viewers want that kind of detail, because there's a lot here. And
Yes.
it's good to know that there's a myriad of opportunity and cash flow here available that is either interest rate driven or not, obviously subsidized or
Right.
unsubsidized. And there's a lot of free money out there, as you've said, with scholarships, et cetera. So there's a lot of
Can I say one more
opportunity.
thing?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's also a CSS profile, and let's just hit on that for a little bit.
Sure,
So the
sure.
bigger privates use the CSS profile owned by the College Board. It's 23 pages, but that also gives opportunities for a Pitzer, an Occidental, a USC, let's go out of state, Vanderbilt, Tufts, any other
Okay.
bigger school to give more institutional money based on the criteria, including the FAFSA.
Fabulous.
And then today's an important day we don't have to decide who's vaccinated or who's not or anything. But as we know this morning, Pfizer was, approved. Okay. And so what we do need to talk about, if you ever want to talk to your financial aid staff member about what's going on, or if the government is giving a rebate, or if the government is giving money, having your FAFSA and or your profile on file is really going to help with money that might come from the government to students who really need it, whether there's technology insecurity or food insecurity or all kinds of things that are going on in college right now.
Fair enough. Absolutely. Also, as in our own case, frankly, we got a scholarship, as a merit scholarship, meaning my daughter, as well as a great financial package based on what we were able to do. And I thought, it's great. That's fantastic. I've never done this before. So, it seems pretty good, but I'm always striving for the best. So let's see if we can maybe appeal this. What is the status of appeal processes? Is it something that's rare, or do all students do it? Like, what do you think a little bit about that as a topic? I think it's important that parents and students know that not only is it important that you do it, but more than likely, which in our case was the case, you'll get significantly more money if you do, but you have to do it really well. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so appeals are a thing, and there's two different kinds of appeals. So the first appeal is a federal special circumstance. They have 5 categories that a financial aid staff member is allowed to grant an appeal. So the first is loss of income.
Okay.
The second is elder care. The third is medical, if there's something that happened, a medical condition where you're paying a lot of out-of-pocket expenses. The fourth is maybe there was, God forbid, someone passed away or divorce or something that happened in the situation. And then the last is other. And other can mean anything that's going on that's unique to the family. So do I think that families should 100% appeal? Yes. Do I think that families can appeal on merit? I just do financial aid. I know that it does happen, and I really don't want to speak to people who do this in my other road. But yes, you can appeal merit if something's going on. There's also, let's talk a little bit about comparing schools and playing one school off the other. It does happen. The Ivies do let you say, this Ivy gave me this, will you match? And so Ivies do match. The lower tier schools will take into consideration, obviously everyone wants to build enrollment. So I'm a fan of appealing. I'll give you 3 tips today. Ready? 1, make your appeal 1 page long. I don't like reading 3 or 4 page letters of appeal. 2, make sure you have hard facts in there, numbers. And 3, be kind.
Right, exactly, because they're reading thousands of letters, and you're one of them. And also, I think I would say number 4 is try to be completely compelling and really convincing, right? Because
Yes.
I think that that could make the difference. We understand that people have need, but when you really make it rather emphatic,
Uh-huh.
people pay attention, the squeaky wheel idea.
Uh-huh.
So
Yes.
how about we talk a little bit about maybe there are many folks out there who are just coming into our show and listening and realizing, well, I've got a high school senior. What really are the steps my high school seniors should take in the fall and
Uh-huh.
in the spring? So let's talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that.
So in the fall, which is what I'm doing right now, a lot of families are calling or emailing or setting up times to chat, and they are worried. Okay, my student has a list. They're working on their Common App, and now I'm a parent or they're a parent, and they're panicking. How are they going to pay for their $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 school?
Sure.
So what you need to do is, what I usually do is get all the documents, which we talked about earlier, together.
Right.
Your FAFSA goes live October 1st. Your student should already be working on their Common App. Again, I'm not in that arena, and filling out their admission applications. You need to make a timeline of all the dates. Financial aid dates are not always the same as admission dates. So please take a look at what your financial aid dates are, and you're working towards financial aid. Fill out your FAFSA, fill out your CSS profile as early as possible, and take a breath.
Yes.
Because then you're just waiting for the college to work on it. The FAFSA only takes 10 schools at a time, so there's criteria on how to take care of that. The CSS profile does charge $9 for the application and $16 for each school that you add. Get in early and answer the questions to the best of your ability, ethically and morally and truthfully correct.
Excellent. Okay. And that's the fall tips, if you will. What should they do in the spring other than take a deep breath once they realize where they're going and how much money they got? And the parents too.
Right. So now your student they have their acceptances. They hopefully have their award letters. Maybe some received them in December. They got in early action, or some are receiving them in March because that's when some schools do it. Everyone has to have their award letter by April 1st. Okay. That's good. And then you should be comparing colleges. If you have the means to visit, you should visit. Does your student see themselves at that school? I know COVID was, a little bit hard, but now maybe you can visit. They see themselves or they don't. I really like to say that students mature. Their eyes see their list in a different way when they enter the college, and their eyes change after January. So in the spring, comparing, appealing, taking a good look, visits, and then you commit on May 1st. And you get your bill in July, and your bill is due. You're only getting half the semester, room, board, and tuition. Before they sit down on the first day of school.
Right, exactly. And I think it's also encouraging and important to note that you can actually put your payment for the fall and or spring on a payment plan based on what the school offers. Like, for instance, LMU offers a 5-pay plan. Well, why not? Sure, let's do that.
Right.
So I think that's super helpful. In terms of the comparing the schools and making a decision and visiting, I think that's a brilliant concept. Not all kids are able to do that. They are able to do virtual tours, which, you probably recommend that. And then I can tell you, our daughter went to the open house at all of the schools, and they have these things. You want to talk a little bit about what the open house entails and when typically those are? That would be helpful to know.
Oh yeah, so this is my favorite part, and I think this is a dark horse that I know. I said that a lot, but it's all my favorite.
I knew you were going to say that.
So here's the deal. Not everyone knows about this. Another tip from Jodi Okun.
Yay.
Okay, so you get your admission application, and now you're an admitted student. In April, every college that you were admitted to holds an admitted student day. Why is that good? Let's use an example. A student I know lived in California and was going to Boston and didn't know anybody that was going to Boston. So that student went to all the admitted student days in California, went to the ones in LA, the ones in Orange County, if you're familiar with California, and then met all the students that live in California. So when they go to the East Coast, they now know people that they know, like, and trust. They had already hung out with them, and now
Great.
they can have those. And
Exactly.
then when they're flying back and forth or not, they can all hang out together. So that's huge. Admitted student days, please. If your student is kicking their feet, just say, this, you need to do this. It'll make them feel so comfortable about their choice. And again, their people will
so.
be there, and then they'll be able to pick where they want to go by May 1st.
Absolutely. That's excellent. And is May 1st a universal date?
Yeah, it's hard date. It's a hard date.
A hard date,
Everyone
okay.
across the globe has to
Good to
commit
know.
to a school.
And the other topic is, because there are not very many people out there with just one child, or maybe there
Right.
are. I tend to believe there's big families and there's kids in college simultaneously.
Right.
Is there anything you could recommend to parents when kids are applying sort of simultaneously? You've got one going into freshman year, you got another one going into junior year, let's say. Anything you could share with the parents that in working with your clients, what do you recommend to those parents who are pretty close to pulling their hair out, likely, because it's the big ticket item and it's a lot of responsibility and a lot to think about. What can the parents do? Are there any parents suggested support groups? No, or some kind of a parent day or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, starting the process early when your children are born is
Right,
probably the
right.
best thing.
I agree.
Knowing
I
that you're
couldn't
going to
agree
be
more.
overlapping in college, or knowing that 2 will be in college or 4 will be in college.
Right.
Also, students then are going to rise to, certain ones are going to have a higher GPA, and maybe they're going to want to go to a brand name school. Others are maybe want to go to a state school. So knowing that all of this is playing into place, I think everyone wants me to say this here, but I can't say it with 100% backup, that when you have 2 in college, it helps.
Oh, yes.
Because the FAFSA, it's going to go away. And so I'm here to give some bad news, but the news is out for a minute. It was supposed to start this year on the FAFSA, that if you had 2 in college, it wasn't going to make a difference. Now that has been pushed back for maybe a year or 2. So we still are out. It's not firm. So that's why I'm not super excited about it.
Right.
So we'll wait and see, what the Department of Ed does, how it rolls out. Hopefully there'll be something around to get around it, but it is mandated so far, and we don't really know the significance of it. So sorry about the bad news.
No, not a problem. Always good to just have the facts. Please, the facts, ma'am. One other last thing that I think is critically important, particularly due to the most recent moratorium on the interest and principal payment deadlines. They've continued to be moved through the pandemic from March 2020 all the way to now January 31st of 2022. Now, that's, of course, unprecedented, I'm sure, in the history of college education and financial aid.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what does that mean, and what do you recommend?
Yeah, so that means your loan's sitting there and kind of out of sight, out of mind. And so I am in the camp of, we are in trillions of dollars of debt because of student loans, because sometimes the borrower will just hold off on pressing send to press that money. And now all of a sudden, I think that we got everyone into log on to your site, look at the number, see what you can pay. We were so close. And now, unfortunately, COVID did this to us. And that's amazing that the government is freezing everything. But guess what we forgot to do? We are not logging in. We're not logging into the loan servicer to see that amount. You might be logging into your bank, you might be logging into your credit card, but now that it's out of sight, out of mind, you're not getting reminder emails because they can't. That now that loan is just sitting there, and you might have $25 or you might have $100 where you can make that payment. So I really encourage everyone who's watching, if you have student loans or parent loans, just make $100 payment. It's going to eat up the loan, and it is the best thing, because this out of sight, out of mind, when you go back and look at that chunk that's there, it's going to take you back. So I'm encouraging everyone to make a payment.
Exactly. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you. And I couldn't agree more, because I think that the more you are engaged in the process and really being current with your financials for college, whether they're due 6 months after they graduate or not, you see, I think that people need to treat it as if it's a mortgage payment, you know, or
Right.
as if it's a serious bill that's a hard cost. Because if they don't, as you're right, you know, that interest, it sounds sort of relaxing and relieving to, oh, 6 months after you graduated, no problem. Well, what people don't realize is, and I know friends still paying for this, most unfortunately, I think, 10 to 12 years later, their kids are in their 30s. And that is, you know, my God, we're paying double what we borrowed.
Right.
And
So
that's a
sad.
disgrace. I'm sorry, it just is. And I
Yes.
understand not everyone's able to sort of chop off big chunks, et cetera. But if the students in their freshman or sophomore year, or even if their junior year, any year is good to start paying the interest off, the principal down. You know, maybe you're so fortunate to be able to pay it off before they leave for college.
Right.
Wouldn't that be phenomenal? And everybody's
there's no penalty for that. There's no penalty,
which
is great.
So no prepayment penalty. And then, you know, as far as that whole topic is concerned, what are the interest rates? Do you know what they are typically?
Yeah, I mean, I have them right here. I mean, right now it's a little bit high while it's opening up on my computer, but I want to segue into two things before I tell you the interest rate for this year.
Okay.
One is forgiveness. I would like really if everyone could stop talking forgiveness.
Right.
Don't forget, if your loan is forgiven, you have to pay tax on that.
Exactly.
Think about
as
that.
Ordinary income, correct?
Right.
Right.
As ordinary income. Okay, now I'm going to segue to the interest, and then I'm going to go back to one other thing about loan plans. So keep me on task. Right now, the subsidized loan is 3.73% for the sub and the unsub for this year, 21-22, and the parent plus loan is 6.28%. Remember, I said earlier, it changes every May. This is a little bit high. Last year was definitely lower. So we'll see what happens May of 2022. I want to talk about plans. I don't usually talk about this, but there's something called student loan plans, and students are put on standard. That means your loan payment is about $50 a month, $50 a month for 10 years. That's great. Wow. The minute you get into a payment plan, right now there's 5, we're not going to discuss them, but an income-based payment plan or some other payment plan, when you sign on that dotted line, that loan goes to 25 years.
Oh, I had no
idea. That's a lot. So if you graduate at 20, 21, and you have a 10-year loan, and then you don't have a job, which happens, I understand if you have to, but please have a talk with all the people around you to talk about whether adding 25 years is really going to be helpful or not helpful. Talk to your loan servicer and really find out what you can do to stay on standard, keep your 10-year plan, and what you can do.
Exactly right. Because in essence, what you're saying is the interest compounded, that's the whole point of compounded interest, could actually triple or quadruple.
Right.
And understandably, people could be in dire straits or you know, sort of temporary.
Yes, and we're not saying.
Right, exactly. But the 10-year standard, I agree with you, is let's just get her done. And that's what it's intended to do. But understanding there are other circumstances, and thank God they're available. And the other thing is you can refinance those loans or some of those loans too, correct?
Yeah, so it's kind of tricky. I mean, you know, please just don't go out of the federal system. Please don't go to these spammers or scammers who are offering you a rose garden because they're going to give you a $30 payment. Because the minute you take your federal loan out of the umbrella, you will not receive federal benefits, which is what everyone's receiving by not having to pay. So if you go with them, it's not a good thing.
Understood. So this has been tremendously informative. I hope you all have enjoyed it immensely. Jodi Okun, she is the founder of College Financial Aid Advisors. Please look her up. Please check her out at College Cash hashtag and 5 p.m. on Thursday evening Pacific. Could you also share with us your book and a little bit about where people can buy that, so they have a little bit more at their disposal after this video, perhaps?
You can go to Amazon and buy the book on Amazon. It's not a how-to book. It's stories from my families about kind of what they were going through and what you may be going through. So it's hopefully evergreen.
And human interest. We love that.
Who knew I was going to be an author? But
That's terrific.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you. And all the best for the coming school year to all parties, and have yourself a lovely rest of the summer of what it's left of it.
And be safe in Connecticut. Stay away from
Yeah,
hurricane waters.
got that right. Okay. Thanks again. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.